Hello, everybody. Tracy Brown here. And if it's morning, good morning to you. I've still got my coffee going here, so I'll be drinking that a little bit as we talk this morning. So, welcome everybody I really appreciate everybody who watches these videos, who shares them, because the point of it is to give people hope, give people information, and all of my information is sourced from a couple of different places. My own personal experience, my experience working with people of all backgrounds, shapes, sizes, ages for the last 12 plus years, and is informed by good evidence-based stuff around what helps people heal from disordered eating, and the plethora of evidence that food restriction doesn't really heal anything. And I'm not talking about the kind of food restriction, I have celiac and gluten's not my friend. I'm not talking about that. So anyway, I thank you all for coming and watching and, like I said, sharing and taking this information and taking what works and leave the rest. So, all right. I was going to talk about set point today and why some people gain weight after they let go of dieting, why some people don't, the reasons why we, when we have life changes that might impact our weight. I was going to talk about that today. That was what was on my mind the last, half hour. But as I got ready to open up and do this video, I was like, I need to talk about this whole fear of weight gain. And it's, just kind of been heavy on me to talk about that. People often ask me, how did I let go of that fear and of weight gain? And I want to say that I didn't necessarily let go of the fear of weight gain. Basically, and I'm going to tell you the story, exactly what happened. And definitely make sure that as I'm talking, that I will be weaving all my privilege in there because I know I have it. But at the time, when I was so afraid of weight gain, I didn't know I had it. And that's part of the point of this too, that we don't realize these different things exist and we're stuck in the other paradigm because that's all we've been taught and what we've learned about. So anyway, I was still, when I finally got to this place of full permission to eat whatever it is I wanted, not faux permission, not taking the edges off of being fully satisfied or, only, there was a phase when I would say I was doing intuitive eating, I was probably 22 or, barely 23, where it's I can eat whatever I want. I don't mind. But the truth is there were still parameters and restrictions, meaning, I can have dessert, but not too much. And I can have a certain amount of carbs servings per day, but, not too many. But it's okay if I have some now. And that was a huge improvement. And honestly, by that time, I was eating fats and some carbs. And those were the two things I restricted a lot in my disordered eating. So to be at that place was really good. So I want you to give yourself credit for where you are. If you still are having some struggles with that, but you've made some progress, that's awesome. But the fact if you eat carbs doesn't always mean, or fat, doesn't always mean that you're eating enough. And that's where people struggle, is that, okay, there's one thing to let yourself have some versus letting yourself have actually as much as you need. And that's going to vary from day to day and year to year and all those kind of things. I didn't know that yet, and that was part of the struggle. But the reason that's difficult is that we still have fears about weight. We still have attachments to, if I gain weight, then I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm going to be criticized, what will people think? And of course, you've heard me talk ad nauseum about that's the work to do, is uncouple our worth. Basically, if I want to just cut straight to the chase, uncouple our worth from what man thinks, and learning to care less and to know that our worth isn't found in what people think about us. And that's our work. There's probably not even a finish line to that. I think that we're always going to kind of keep checking ourselves in places where we're worried a lot about what people think. And I have hope for everybody to recover fully from diet trauma and disordered eating, that, once we get past that, there might be some places, little sticky places that sneak up on us occasionally that we're still have little worries about that. So again, don't beat yourself up. It's just part of life that we're always healing those little old wounds and letting those go. So anyway, this was the day. I remember, we all have these epiphany days in our recovery that you don't ever forget. And I'm trying to think if I can give you an exact date. The season. I do believe it was springish, summer, and I'll never forget. I was in my kitchen scarfing down probably a half a pan of cornbread at least, and this is a regular occurrence, and I wasn't full-on binging, but it was deprivation-driven eating because of the carb thing. I wasn't letting myself have enough of what my body needed throughout the day to not have that happen. And it really just felt like lack of satisfaction and just overall not getting that need met. And, if you reduce any one food group, you're going, to have a little bit of calorie deprivation, which was what was happening. It wasn't extreme, but it was enough to where my body didn't trust that I was going to get enough or this was going to happen again. So I needed to eat more. So anyway, I'm sitting here doing this and I'm trying to kind of hide it that I'm doing it, but not fully hide it because I wasn't that ashamed. I'd been doing it for so long. Like, well, this is kind of what I do. And I recognized, like, wait a minute, it just hit me that this happens every day. And the thing that is the same about this, not only this behavior, but the rest of the day's behaviors, which is, I'm barely eating any carbs all day. So of course that's going to happen. And so I'm sitting there. For those of you who listen to my other videos, I do a lot of just dropping where I'm at and sitting on the floor, laying on the floor because I need to ground myself. And I didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time. But I just sat down and said, okay, on my kitchen floor, on the hard, cold tile floor, and said, okay, look, why is it that you keep doing this? How come you keep restricting your food all day long? And what came to me was just some really, really old wounds and stuff that, oh my gosh, if I gain weight, I'm just going to say it out there. I'll be like my grandma. And I had a lot of stuff with her. Things are resolved and healed. I've worked really hard on that, to forgive and let a lot of stuff go. But I just didn't want to be like her. And I thought that meant as a kid, I coupled that with, I don't want to be like her. And that included look like her. And I did look like her. And she was a rounder woman. And I believed, because she always criticized herself for having lack of willpower to stay on diets and was a chronic crash dieter. She hated her body. I was afraid of being like that too. Not only just her body size, because I thought that meant that, you weren't lovable because she didn't love herself, but I also felt like that meant that I would live a life of just this constant food preoccupation and cycle, which ended up happening to me because of trying to go the opposite direction, which was control everything. So I sat there like, okay, so what if you look like her and your body looks like her and it's bigger and rounder? And I had to kind of think in my mind what I thought her estimate of her weight was, because I was still hung up on like, well, I can't weigh more than a certain number. Like, okay, so what if you weighed that? I had it in my head. What would happen? And then that moment I realized, oh, well, even if I weighed that, all the things that I currently have in my life aren't going to just magically disappear, even if I'm rounder. I'm not going to lose my job. And so I was really, really, really early in one of my first jobs after I graduated, and it wasn't it wasn't this work yet. And that's not going to go away. These people are pretty nice to me. They respect me. My husband's not going anywhere. We were very nearly married. And I wasn't dieting at that point. I was still struggling with like faux permission though, with eating. And I just sat there. I'm like, if that's the worst that happens to me, my life's not going to end. And maybe people won't like me, but I had enough faith that and in my, the people who did care about me, that they might have thought that maybe I've let myself go, or there's something's wrong, or that I'm unhealthy. But those are their thoughts. And I know the truth, that even if I weighed that, the likelihood is it's I do care enough about stuff that I may not necessarily be unhealthy in terms of I'm probably still not going to radically change my food, except for I won't maybe be binging every day anymore if that's what it takes. and so that's the story, is that at that moment, I was willing to, like, I'm going to have to do what it takes. And I'm going to have to stop being afraid of weight gain, because that's what's holding me back. That's what's holding me back from full permission. That's what's holding me back from these, miniature diet binge cycles in every single day. That's what's allowing that to keep going, is this idea that, like, I couldn't weigh that number because I'm not her. I'm not her, even though we kind of look alike. And there was a part of me that also realized, part of this fear isn't totally real, because I didn't really have her body type. I look like her facially, and there's some aspects of her personality that are similar, but I'm not her. I haven't had her life's experiences and her traumas, even though they've deeply impacted me. But those aren't mine. And even the things that have happened to her and the things that have happened to me aren't who she is and aren't who I am. And that doesn't mean that weight has anything to do with who we are going to grow to become to be, And so I think that's really crucial. And, I was probably lucky in my recovery that I didn't have a lot of people trying to reassure me, like, oh, no, you're not going to gain weight. Well, again, there wasn't a lot of body positivity stuff back then. There was just like, eat your food and get better and get over it. That was kind of a lot of my experiences. So I didn't know what to expect. And I think that lack of not knowing what to expect was really scary, because I was afraid I would be like her. And that was just one of the reasons, one of the big reasons. And so that's what this video is about, y'all, is recognizing that we've got to get to the root of what makes weight gain the worst thing that could ever happen to us. And I know that I have privilege, because that ended up happening to me. I ended up eating more carbs all day long, and my weight shifted a little, but not that much. And I know that's not the case for everybody. Some people do end up, weighing 10, 20, 30, 40 more pounds more. That's, my story is not everybody's story. I totally know that. But I just assumed that that's just the way everything was. That, like, you eat more and you weigh more. Well, that's not necessarily the truth. Once you let go of dieting, you're going to have a little bit, if not a lot, of rebound, just because your body has been repressing all its systems to help you survive. And for some people, it's not your fault. It's not that you're doing intuitive eating wrong. It's just how it goes. The body needs to make sure that, like, it is prepared for the next famine cycle. And so that's not your fault. And the worst thing, and I'm highly sensitive to the fact that, like, even though my weight did shift some, it didn't shift as much as a lot of people's do. And so there's privilege in there, in that for me, that I really didn't have to worry about people overtly criticizing to my face about my weight in any kind of way. And I didn't have to, like, do that projection that a lot of us do, that, like, oh my gosh, everybody thinks that since I've gained weight that I'm bad and I'm this or I'm that. And that can be real, or just projection, and our fears and our judgments about that. So, but I know that happens for a lot of people, and it's definitely real. And everybody who's watching this video, we all have love and compassion for each other around. Some people are going to really have to face that. But I just want to share this with you, that for people of all shapes and sizes, fear of weight gain, is what makes intuitive eating harder to work through all the stages and phases with. Sometimes because we're just afraid of, like, letting go of that control of what that would mean if we did let ourselves eat fully and in a nourished way, and it's not a free for all kind of way, but in a way of, like, getting our needs met and all that. So I'm hoping this video was helpful. Hope I didn't ramble too much, but that was, for me, that epiphany moment of, like, gaining weight isn't the worst thing that will ever happen to me. And, those kind of conversations with ourselves do allow us to see our own either internalized fat prejudice, our own biases. And that's the work that every single person who's ever let go of dieting or who's recovered from an eating disorder has to do. Because we've put so much, it's not our fault. I mean, this is the, working away from these man-made constructs is hard work. And there's choices that we've all made where we've taken on what the world thinks about, as a way to try to, suppress people and control people and all that. And that's part of it. So it's painful. I had a lot of guilt and shame about that because, like, okay, here I am, probably in a thin, privileged body, afraid to gain weight. It made me feel really bad about myself. Like, and I had to have compassion, just like I espoused to everybody else, that even if, like, your thinking's a little icky, and would harm other people, you got to face that. Because if you're inner projecting in yourself that weight gain is the worst thing ever, you're not probably going to, even though you might think you are or can be non-judgmental towards other people, there's some high probability that there's that towards others. And for me, when I recognized that, that was hard to live with. And that's what spurred my desire to push myself as hard as I could around that issue. Because I'm like, I got to let that go. That, like, if that's the worst thing would ever happen. The worst thing that will, being judged for your weight is awful. It feels terrible. But I also came to realize that's not the worst thing that would ever happen. The worst thing that would ever happen is that, like, people I care about are gone. That would be about it, to be perfectly honest. Like, everything else we can move on from. And then we can move on from that too, but that would be really, really hard. But in my mind, I had to think of, like, what is really the worst thing that would happen? It's not weight gain. Because it's not going to prevent me from, living, trying to work, trying to do what's mine to do in the world, be kind to people. It's like, that's not going to stop that, even if I weighed whatever amount more. So anyway, I hope this video is helpful. If anybody sees any place where there's anything showing through me that I'm not, like, meaning, I'm fully aware of my experiences and everybody else's. And if I'm messing up in any kind of way around that, I want to be called on it. So I can handle it, even if it hurts me, because I don't want to hurt anybody. So if I'm missing a spot in any of these kind of conversations that are, I think, are very important to have, but also need a lot of be held carefully, then please let me know. I don't want to come off as like I know how everybody should handle every situation, but I just know for me, and I think this seems to be held true for all the clients I've ever worked with, is that, like, that fear of that would be the worst thing that could ever happen in all shapes and sizes seems to be, once we start really working through that, we get a lot of freedom. And we definitely, I think, can feel better about who we're growing to be. So I'm hoping this video was helpful. I appreciate you all listening and watching, and especially sharing. I think that's really important. So I hope you're all having a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. And I will get to that set point video, because this might help, if you're a science-minded person, this might help you understand, like, why the body does what it does when we let go of all that restraint and restriction. I plan to do that Friday. So until then, I'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye.